Embodies Radio. This is Win, who's also the co-host for our show. So yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and start asking some of the questions that we prepared. Okay. First, we know that you guys were part of the Cannes Festival here in China, where you originally met our team. How did you first get involved with the organizers of Cannes, and was it something that came naturally, or did you have to reach out? Did they reach out to you? How did that start?
We actually got a Facebook, or sorry, an Instagram message from Pest Productions, who's a label in China, and asking us to play the festival. It was kind of a random thing that we were not expecting at all, and we're not a huge band. We've never played a show overseas before, let alone halfway around the world. So we got that message from Past Productions. We started talking to them. It kind of all went from there. We're talked to a few other bands that we knew or reached out to that had played the festival previously. Just to, at first one of the guys in the band thought it was a scam because it just was just such a wild offer. So we did a little research and talked to some folks, and everyone said it was the best thing that they've ever done, and we should definitely do it. And it kind of snowballed from there, and we ended up playing in China.
Well, congratulations. Were you surprised by the turnout and the reaction of the kind of the Chinese audience?
Yeah, big time. It was a lot different than, what we get here in the US, and just even as far as hospitality and the way that the Chinese audience seems to appreciate, the music and kind of being really into the vibe there. It was yeah, it was different, it was surprising, and it was incredible. Really cool experience, and very grateful for it, for sure.
Seemed like there was a really everyone at the festival, all the attendees at the festival seemed so happy and excited to be there, and it was like seemed like a big giant community at this festival, which is a pretty different experience than what happens at festivals in the United States. And then I think there was also just the added, there were obviously a lot of bands from around the world that were playing the festival. We were one of two bands from the United States. And so there just was, I think it's not the most common thing in the world for bands from the United States to come over to China, or at least it didn't used to be. I think it's getting a little easier to do. But just the enthusiasm for being able to meet people from around the world was very cool to see. And there did just it just seemed to be a really big. It felt like everyone there was really appreciative of us traveling, but also just music in general, which was really nice and refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, we were blown away by the hospitality and the kindness of people. I think one thing, that was really kind of crazy to us too was after we, initially when, we were talking with the team, they asked if we wanted to do like a autograph session after we played, and we said sure. But we kind of just assumed, maybe like a few people would be there, or like no one would come. And then when we were done, we were all really excited and had a great time, and we're getting off stage of like the excitement of getting off the stage, and they're like, oh, well, we have to go to your signing now, and we like walk down the back path, and there's this big line of people, and we're like, oh,
Huge
what's that
line. Yeah.
for? And they were like, oh, that's to meet you guys. And we were like, wow. So we got to have like a little bit of moment with people, and people brought gifts. They have there's like a really cool culture of the festival that they I think there's a lot of trading of like different little gifts that they make. I got like a flag, I got a hat, I got a demo thing for a Chinese band called Cyclone. Shout out Cyclone, if anybody knows them. And like little poker chips. I don't know if it's like little in America. It's like casino chips where you bet. I don't know
Yeah, yeah.
what you call them over there, but something like that.
Mm.
And little stickers and stuff. And that's just very that doesn't happen. The fandom of musicians and bands and stuff like that here in the U.S. People, I think, are generally like a little too cool, and they don't they're not really interested in those types of things. I am. I love that stuff. But it was really cool to be part of that and see people be excited about us, a couple of goons from America, like 7,000 miles away. It was great.
That's
Wow.
cool. And that's also how our team first met.
So, do you guys like? What was your first impression of our teams, like Nico or Endika?
Nico reached out to us on Instagram also after the festival got announced, and wanted to meet up and do some filming and interviews and all that. And again, this was such a thing that we're not used to. You know, we're not a big band. We've been doing this a while, but we're not, we don't play giant shows and festivals like this. We don't travel around the world. So to have, a group like TMS reach out to us and be interested in our music and want to do some filming, it's true. It was like we were thrilled. Like we don't take this kind of stuff for granted. We were like are genuinely appreciative, and so it was really cool. It was like so nice, Nico was super communicative over Instagram, and then it was really great to like finally, meet at the festival. And it's just cool to travel all the way around the world and meet someone who you've been talking to on the internet, but we get to meet them in person. All the content that your team puts out, on all the internet and social media is great. So when you all were interested in talking with us, it was an instant yes.
I'm blushing for our team. I'm like, no, come on, man.
Well, one other thing about you guys too, I didn't know about this until after the fact. We have like some mutual friends in common from like 20 years ago. There's a band also from Boston called Harris, and Nico ran, I forget the name of the label now off the top of my head. I have the CD still upstairs, but put out a record with a split with them and a band from France called Spud Gun. And so it was really cool, like to be talking to the team on the internet and meet you 7,000 miles away from us, but then to learn that there was a connection between bands that we have played with from Boston that I have been a major fan of for a long time. And it just shows how small the world is and how small the music world is. And it wasn't like, our first interaction with them, and they, had dealt with musicians and people that we like and admire. So I thought that was really cool too.
You've been making music for a while now, and I just want to ask, what was the original inspiration behind starting Glacier, and how did you all like first come together and start playing together?
So Ryan Dooley, the other guitar player, and I have been friends since we were in the seventh grade. So over like 25 years now at this point. And, when we grew up, we were first playing guitar together and learning to play our instruments together. And then that turned into, playing music together in different bands in middle school and high school. Our first bands and creative projects were together. And when we graduated high school, we kind of stopped playing, and I went and did different music, and he did different things. Years later, in 2012, we were driving, him and I were driving to New York to go see Explosions in the Sky. We had seen that band a bunch of times over the years, and they were just kind of a band we always loved. Neither of us had been playing music at that point for a handful of years, and we were driving down there, and we just said, hey, we should like start a band again. And Derek is Ryan's brother, and he's been in my life the same amount of time. So then we got together that summer of 2012, and started the initial band. We were a 4-piece. We had a drummer, Joey Campbell, who was with us, and put out a couple of releases with that lineup, and then eventually changed. And we had Matt Vincenti. He joined the band at one point and played third guitar, and we got 3 guitars, and we said we're never turning back. And and then eventually Joey left the band, and we had another drummer come in. His name was Tim Schmoyer, and he played on one release, but then he moved across the country, and then that brought us to finding Jesse. And Jesse was a mutual friend and played in bands that we had known but we actually found each other through Craigslist. I don't know if you guys have Craigslist in China.
I know
What?
Craigslist, from the
Okay, yeah.
US.
But it's basically like a want ads on the, an internet want ad. And he posted, we were really desperate, and we didn't, we weren't sure what was going on because our drummer had moved across the country, and we were nervous about, would the band continue? And we went on Craigslist and saw an ad that said, "Loud drummer seeks loud band," and that is like the
Perfect.
exact thing that we were looking for. And we had one practice together, and he said, "Can I leave my drums in the practice space?" Which is like the equivalent of, like, when you start maybe being romantically involved with someone and they ask to leave a toothbrush at your place
Yeah.
Oh,
after the first date. So he was very presumptuous, but it ended
Yeah,
up
very
working out.
expensive toothbrush.
And now, so this was, I don't know, this is
So,
coming up a couple on
yeah.
8 years ago at this point, and that's been the lineup up until recently. Matt left the band at the end of last year. He plays in another band. We wish him well, but he's not with us anymore. And but fortunately, our good friend Liz, she wasn't able to join us here tonight, but she has been a collaborator and a friend of the band for many years. She's like basically the sixth member of the band previously. She had done a lot of the artistic, direction of the band. She's done multiple records as far as the artwork is concerned, and she's done a lot of merch designs and stuff like that for us. And on our last record, she actually did some guitar, and she did vocals on the record. We wanted to collaborate with her. So after Matt left the band, she was the first person that we asked, and she joined up, and the China experience actually kind of, I think, helped propel that relationship. And we were able to say, "Hey, would you like to fill in for us? We have this cool opportunity in China." And that was her second show with us. So no
oh,
pressure.
Yeah.
But she did phenomenally well. And we kind of all said, well, this will kind of make or break, if how this goes. And fortunately, we went to China. We had the time of our lives, and we all got along incredibly well. And we came back tighter and happier than ever. So we're back from China. We have played some shows since then. We were fortunate to play a couple shows with a band called Cave In around the Northeast here. And then after that, we went to Canada for a few dates. So we are refreshed and excited about Liz, and excited to write with her, and excited to continue on with the band with the new member and new direction. And we're future's looking real bright. We're all fired up.
Originally, when we had started the band, our mission statement was to see how quickly we could empty out a room. Uh, we wanted to make songs that were so loud and long that people couldn't stand to be in the room anymore. And then as we continued playing, people were actually staying, and more people were coming in, and so it actually
You realize there's a niche for that.
yeah, yeah, kind of worked the opposite of our intention. And
Which I think is
now,
great. I mean, if your
yeah,
intention
yeah,
is to start really small and it ends up becoming big, I mean, you succeeded in every way, right?
yeah, it brought us to China and other places in the world. And yeah.
okay. So I kind of want to know, like, growing up, what was the music scene like for you? Like, do you always have, always like the certain kind of music, or you like have this kind of mindset, like what kind of sound you want to create at the first time already?
I think we all grew up, um, in a similar kind of time period. We
Yeah.
all Jesse was out in the western part of the state.
Mhm.
Liz was down in Connecticut. Ryan, Derek, and I were all, around the Boston area when we were growing up. And I
Yeah.
think, one thing that Boston is particularly kind of well known for is aggressive music. So we grew up, initially getting into, hardcore music and metal music and punk music and other
Mhm.
types of like aggressive music. And so I think we all kind of came from that background. And
Mhm.
that just kind of, as you're, when you're younger, for us, everybody had their gateways, but whatever that was in the 90s of what you first get into, and then you kind of just evolve over time. But I think
Yeah.
it's all generally centered, or when we were finding music on our own, I can
Mm,
speak for myself, and always had music in the house. My dad was a huge music fan and listened to a lot of different types of music. But then the first music that I could kind of claim on my own was, aggressive heavy metal and punk and hardcore music. And then that just, you kind of go through that, and then you discover, a lot of the Gen 1 post rock, if you want to call it that, bands, instrumental bands like Godspeed You Black Emperor and Mogwai and Explosions in the Sky, and that was really attractive to us,
yeah.
and that's kind of where we morph a little bit of the heavy stuff with
Mm,
some instrumental music too. And but yeah, that's I think that's kind of a 10,000-foot overview of how we got into it.
With your recent album, A Distant Violent Shudder, it touches on themes of like the Dust Bowl era and a time of like harsh struggles and resilience. Can you tell us more about the historical period, how that historical period kind of influenced the album, and why you thought it was kind of important for you to bring it into your record?
When we were writing the record, the first song that we wrote for the record was song 2 on the record, which is titled Old Timers. And when we were writing that, the beginning of it felt like it could use some sort of audio clip or sample over it. So I had spent a bunch of time just kind of combing through the internet looking for things. I came across some clips with interviews of people who lived through the Dust Bowl in the US back in the day. And I thought they were really interesting, and it's an interesting period, and just the tone and what they were talking about felt fitting. So I took those and kind of slowed them down and manipulated them, and we tried them out, and it just seemed to work in the context of the songs. And it kind of became just like a small centering point around how we wanted to kind of write or think about the rest of the record in general. We had started writing this record after COVID, which was obviously like a worldwide giant like traumatic experience for a lot of people. It brought us kind of we were thinking about that in relation to the Dust Bowl, which was again this kind of big phenomenon that affected a lot of people all at the same time, and going through that same sort of shared experience. And so it felt like it made sense. It fit kind of thematically just for what we were thinking and kind of how the music sounded.
My next question is about the Dust Bowl. Like Dust Bowl like brings feelings of destruction, but also survival and change. So how do you think these themes of perseverance and collapse come across in your music, like especially without lyrics or explain it?
I've always kind of like envisioned how we write, because we do have these larger, darker kind of parts. We have a lot of ebbs and flows, and I think that in order to create something that sounds really destructive and dark, you also have to have the contrast. You know what I mean? You have to have kind of builds of hope and lighter parts, and when you kind of add those parts of like, hopefulness and stuff, you're
Mm,
able to destroy them musically. You know what I mean? You kind of can't have one without the other. And that's kind of the way I've always looked at the way
mm,
that we write, and these kind of sonic journeys, that we take. If you want to have something big and crushing, then you need to like have something to crush, I guess.
I don't know. Also, like being in a band is just hard. Like it's fun and we all love it, and it's something that we've done for our whole lives. Do you have moments of that same sort of like trials and tribulations, and do you also have these big moments of payoff, like being able to travel to China and play Cannes Festival? It's sort of, I don't know, I feel like the music also is just very indicative of just like what it's like to be a band. That's what it feels like to me a lot of the times also.
How did the recording process for a distant violent shudder differ from earlier albums like Heraldry, the approach? Did you approach writing and recording differently this time?
Writing was a little bit different because it was mostly a lot of it was during the pandemic. It was a lot of starting and stopping, and we had initially gotten together to write the record after kind of a while of being away from each other. And
Yeah.
prior to that, we had, we were together every week writing. The way that we write music is together in a practice room. We're not really remote guys with recording software at home. I mean, there was a little bit of that going on, but it's very much a collaborative effort. So it was different because there was a big pause between the last record and this one, writing it. The actual process of recording it was very similar. We went to Benny Grotto in Boston at Mad Oak Studios, and he engineered the record. And the biggest difference was we had a little bit more time. We had a few more days in the studio to really craft the sounds and devote the time to the performances, which I think shows in the record. But those were kind of the biggest pieces, was writing the music post COVID and having a little bit more time in the studio.
I want to ask you about your name, because actually there's a lot of other artists using the same name. There's like a solo artist using Glacier. There's the classic band from the 80s using Glacier. There's someone from the UK using Glacier. Have you had any trouble like separating yourself from some of these other glaciers?
I'm happy to speak upon that. So I'm gonna give it all. So you can print it in bold and italicize it too.
Yeah.
So when we started the band back in 2012, Joey, our original drummer, had a project, and he called it Glacier. And it was not this band, but it was something else. But when we started this band and the music we started to write, it really kind of felt fitting for us, for the music we were trying to write. Slow, unmoving, and so we said, you know what, let's do a quick search. And in 2012, brother, there was nothing out there except for 80s Glacier.
Yeah.
And at that point, 80s Glacier hadn't done a thing in 30 years, and we said, statute of limitations up, we're the new kings in town, and we're taking this thing. And then since then, you get all these other glaciers all over the place, and that's fine. They can have whatever they want, but we all know.
So let me tell you something.
Who the real glacier is, and
I'll tell you.
Us.
Let me tell you something. There's a band called Captives. They're from Australia, and back in 2021, they were having trouble because there was a band in the UK also called Captives. They had the same name. They played the same style of music. So the band in Australia, what they did was they trademarked the name in the UK. So overnight, the UK Captives, all their music got dropped from streaming platforms and everything. Like they had to cease desist, cannot use the name anymore, had to change their name. So they changed their name to Caskets instead. So I actually interviewed Captives, and I was kind of asking them about it, but still trying to be polite, because actually they're very nice guys. But it's one of those things where it had to be done, but who was going to be the first one to do it?
We've had two other people in this call have had conversations about wanting to trademark things in the past. We actually had our Facebook page a couple of years ago over COVID. Actually, we had our Facebook page get removed from Facebook, and we lost all our followers and everything. And we think our conspiracy theory was that the 80s Glacier, who's now active again, was behind that, but we don't actually know that for sure. But yeah, it's complicated. I mean, coming up with band names is really difficult in general. It's really hard to come up with something. I think that we're lucky to have a name that still feels like it very much fits the music that we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish. So yeah, maybe we should trademark it.
Yeah, but if it's already done, then
yeah, exactly. Yeah, who knows?
You can become Glaciers with an S.
Yeah.
That's already a band too.
Yeah, there's a band. There's another like post-metal, post-rock band called Glaciers. And there's another one I think called Ghosts of Glaciers.
Maybe the Glacier.
We could be the Almighty Glacier.
Yeah, we've messed around talking about the Almighty Glacier.
Yeah, what we would do if we had to change our name.
The
Yeah.
artist formerly known as Glacier.
Yeah. Our name is also hard just in general because it's glaciers are a real thing, you know.
Yeah,
So it's
it's like a noun.
yeah. Since we were in China, I've joined Red Note, so we have Glacier as a Red Note account on there now. But
Mm.
the majority of the Glacier content on Red Note is people on literal glaciers, which is pretty funny. So it's yeah, it's I mean in general, it's a little bit hard to find a
Well,
band
next
like
album
us.
can be regarding Titanic, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
What's next for Glacier? Are you working on new music, or are you focusing on touring, enjoying the success of the latest album? Like, what are you guys? What are your plans?
Yeah, we have something that will be coming out in the near future. That's not announced yet. You heard it first here on TMS Live.
All right.
And yeah, we our next big thing, we're playing post festival in Indianapolis this summer, which is kind of the one and only post music festival in the United States. So we're very excited for that. So we'll be able to travel not half around the world, but half around the country at least for that. So that should be a fun one that comes up in July of this year.